Justine Waters answered the phone when it buzzed, finding a message from her husband Tom. He had been away for work, and the message said the business was done, and he was on his way back. He mentioned dinner reservations at Mario's for their 7th anniversary celebration at 7 o'clock. Surprisingly, the message lacked the usual affectionate emojis. Justine replied, expressing love and anticipation, placing her phone on the nightstand for a response. When none came, she realized she had time to freshen up before meeting Tom. Justine had spent time with a man named Jake Carter. Tom didn't know about Jake, thinking he was back east. Justine, however, learned Tom was returning early and had made dinner plans. When Jake asked about Tom's knowledge of them, Justine doubted it, mentioning Tom's recent social withdrawal. Jake suggested a risky idea, but Justine declined, opting to clean up quickly. She assured Jake that Tom probably didn't know about their affair. As Justine prepared, Jake inquired about Tom's awareness of their child's paternity, but Justine was unsure. She acknowledged Tom's distant behavior, and Jake offered his support if needed. Justine smiled at him, hinting at future encounters, and Jake agreed. Justine then picked a clean dress from her closet, reflecting on the secrecy surrounding her double life. Before, the dress Justine wore was blue and fell to about 3 inches above the knee, featuring a deep, seductive neckline. She believed Tom might have seen it before. If not, she claimed she just bought it. After calling her mother, Justine took a hot shower, brushed her long dark hair, and got dressed, satisfied with her appearance. She kissed Jake, said goodnight, and left for dinner, claiming she'd see him at the office the next day. Meanwhile, Tom Waters, sitting in his Escalade across from Mario's, received a message from a private investigator. It revealed that Justine had left Jake Carter's condominium, her lover for the past year and a half. Tom examined a picture of her in a blue dress, realizing it wasn't the one she had worn to Carter's apartment. Justine was right, he hadn't seen it before. Tom had returned early due to a security breach, urgent and involving a secretive federal agency. Tom recalled the tense meeting with Alpha One, who emphasized solving the problem discreetly. Terrified, Tom agreed, aware of Alpha One's ruthlessness. Unbeknownst to Justine, Tom wasn't just a salesman. He sold and installed security equipment with special circuits, providing intel to Alpha One. The problem Alpha One mentioned was Justine, who had been having an affair with Jake Carter for the past year and a half. Tom had been unaware until recently, consumed by his frequent work travels. However, he had sensed something amiss between them for a while. When he finally discovered the details of Justine's affair, she announced she was pregnant. The lawyer informed Tom that no judge would consider a divorce while Justine was pregnant. If the baby turned out to be his, he'd be obligated to child support despite their prenuptial agreement. The house he owned before marriage was exempt, but Tom gritted his teeth and endured the pregnancy. His temper almost broke when she named the boy Jacob, immediately after birth. Tom, suspecting the child wasn't his, had a DNA test confirming it. Or Justine would soon arrive. He saw a couple at Mario's entrance, recognizing them as meant for him. Tom parked, grabbed his briefcase, and headed inside, acknowledging them quietly. Seated in a corner booth, he noticed the khaki-clad man and woman in another booth nearby. As he perused the menu, Tom saw Justine arriving and set it aside. Greeting her neutrally, he commented on her appearance. Justine explained her new dress, and after ordering, they heard their song playing. Justine hinted at dancing, and despite the circumstances, Tom agreed, thinking it might be their last anniversary. He asked, "Would you like to dance?" and stood up. "I don't mind," Justine said, extending her hand. Tom took it, leading her to the dance floor. They danced in each other's arms, but Justine noticed Tom maintaining distance, as if he could barely touch her. When the song ended, Tom escorted her back to the booth, where their food awaited. "Is something wrong, Tom?" Justine inquired. "You seem reserved." "It's our anniversary, yes," Tom replied. "The thing is, your dress smells like it's been hanging in Jake Carter's closet for a long time, and no matter how hard you try, you haven't been able to cleanse your body of his stench completely." "What?" Justine asked, offended. "Jake Carter? Are you serious?" "Yes, you know Jake Carter, one of the senior partners at the law firm you work at," Tom said casually. "Of course I know him," Justine retorted sarcastically. I certainly hope so," Tom continued. "After all, you've spent enough time in his bed. Plus, he's little Jacob's sperm donor." "This is outrageous," Justine exclaimed. "I'm not going to sit here and listen to you talk to me like that." "Actually, sit," Tom said, opening his briefcase. "You're going to sit there and absorb whatever information I decide to give you, especially after what you've been doing for the last 16 months. I don't know what you're talking about, Justine protested. Sure you do, Tom said, dropping a piece of paper in front of her. It's the result of your baby's DNA test. According to this, Jacob is not my son. The next sheet is another DNA test that proves the sperm donor is none other than your lover, Jake Carter, the man you named Jacob after. Confused, Justine asked, "How could you have gotten Jake's DNA?" "It was easy. You brought it home with you at least 3 nights a week," Tom replied, pulling out a thick folder. "This is a copy of every email, text message, and email between you and Jake for the last 16 months. There's no such thing as internet privacy." "Okay, I admit it," she said. "Jake and I fooled around once, but it was just sex. It didn't mean anything." Tom tossed the folder onto the table, saying, "Turn to page 75, and go about halfway down the page until you find the passage I've highlighted. Tell me what you see." She flipped through the pages, reaching the one Tom referred to. Her face paled as she read her own words to Jake. "I want to hear you say the words you wrote to him," Tom insisted. "Please don't make me do this," she begged. "Either you do it, or I will, and I don't care who hears it," Tom replied. Tears streamed down her face as she reluctantly read the highlighted passage. "I love what you're doing to me, Jake. I've never felt as wonderfully fulfilled as I have in the last 16 months. I can't wait for you to knock me up with another baby," she read aloud. "In all the time we've been married, I don't remember you ever talking to me like that," Tom said. "Is that all you have?" she nervously asked. "No, I have pictures, audio, and video." "Hours upon hours of video," Tom admitted. "You must really hate me," Justine said quietly. "Yes, of course I do." She looked up, shocked by his words, feeling as if he just slapped her. "There was a time when I would have taken a bullet for you. How long have you known?" "I had my suspicions even before you told me you were pregnant. I did some digging and got evidence, enough to satisfy the prenup. However, by the time I spoke to a lawyer, you had informed me that you were pregnant. The lawyer explicitly told me that no judge would consider divorce until after you had given birth, child support and all. But now that Jacob is born, I had more than enough evidence to do my job. So I filed for divorce on grounds of adultery," Tom explained, pointing to 2 people at a neighboring table who approached them. "This nice man has something for you, Miss Justine Waters," the man said. "Yes," Justine responded quietly. The man placed a heavy paper envelope in front of her. "You have been served," he informed her, and tears rolled down Justine's face. "Yes," Tom said, handing her a pen. "Divorce papers. Look at them. They're exactly as we agreed in the prenup. Sign them now, and I'm ready to give you a bank check for $2,145.63, the exact amount you had when we got married. Don't ask for anything else. I already know about your secret little slush fund. You can keep it. All your things were delivered to your mother's house. Yes, she knows, and she's very disappointed in you. But she's agreed to let you stay with her until you find a place of your own, for the boy, not for you." "But I don't want a divorce, Tom. I love you, please," Justine pleaded. "Don't insult my intelligence, Justine. Listen to this," he said, pulling out his phone and replaying her earlier conversation with Jake. Her eyes widened as she heard her own voice coming from Tom's phone. "How did you get that?" she asked. "Well, I'd tell you, but then I'd really have to shoot you on sight. As much as I hate you right now, I really don't think it was right to deprive little Jacob of his mother," Tom said with a smile that lacked warmth. "To you, I was nothing more than food stamps and a guardian while your baby daddy got all the benefits. Just so you know, your ticket is punched. No more free lunch, at least not from me." "What about Jake?" she asked. "Ah, worried about daddy, huh? Luckily, we live in a state that allows lawsuits for alienation of affection. He's being served right now. It may or may not lead to something, but it's the principle that matters, isn't it? Either way, his problems are just beginning. Today, I spoke to Hamilton Parker, your managing partner. I showed him my evidence and expressed my displeasure, knowing that one of his senior partners was involved with a subordinate, specifically a subordinate who is my wife, at least for the time being. Mr. Parker was quite upset and more than a little concerned that Mr. Carter's antics might draw unwanted attention to his firm, not to mention a rather significant financial burden. He agreed that it would be best if Mr. Carter was no longer associated with the firm and assured me that he would discuss this with his board of directors this evening. He also agreed that it would be wrong to penalize you, especially since you're a mother with a newborn baby. After all, Mr. Carter was your boss, if I may say so, and he didn't want to expose the firm to a potential sexual harassment suit, given your work history. He agreed it would be best to keep you on board, at least for a while. But I assure you, Mr. Carter's problems are just beginning, Tom said. How much do you know about your lover? I mean, really? No. What are you talking about? Justine asked. I'm talking about his clients, the people he does business with. I mean, who he really represents and what he does when he's not stuffing you into his mattress. What do you know about that? I don't know. He doesn't talk to me about any of that stuff. That's probably a good thing. Let's just say Jake Carter has a very interesting clientele, the kind that attracts the attention of certain federal agencies that can make a man disappear without a trace. You know what I'm talking about. You scare me, Tom. And you should be scared, he told her. Are you scared enough to stay away from Jake Carter? Because he's going down, and if you're anywhere near him when it happens, you're going down too. Who are you, Tom? She asked. Really? He smiled, nodding his head at the papers in front of her. Sign the papers, Justine, and stop this farce now. I probably told you too much already. And by the way, your credit card has been canceled, and your house key doesn't work anymore. I changed the locks today while you were with Jake. I also took care of the bank account, so you no longer have access to it. Considering you save half your earnings into your own secret account, that shouldn't be a problem for you anyway. You had everything, didn't you? She asked. Tom shrugged his shoulders, defeated. Justine looked over the divorce papers and saw that they were exactly as Tom had said. She signed the papers and handed the pen back to Tom. He smiled, took the pen, and looked over the papers. The process server witnessed the signatures, and the one accompanying him notarized the signed documents. Tom handed the papers back to the man. I'll make sure this gets to your lawyer, Mr. Waters, the man said. Thank you, Tom said. After they left, Tom turned to Justine again. I think you should give your rings back, he told her. Do I have to do that? I love those rings, she exclaimed. Apparently not enough to stay out of Jake Carter's bed. Justine tearfully removed the rings and placed them on the table. He put them in his pocket before turning to her. I believe our business here is concluded. Is that your conclusion? Is that all we have to say? She asked. What more needs to be said? Tom asked. Why did you do this on our anniversary? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Do you know how humiliating that was for me? Do you know how humiliating it was for me to find out that you've been fooling around with me all this time? And how humiliating it was to find out that Jacob wasn't my son? And how humiliating it was for me to find out you expletive. Carter on our anniversary. Don't give me that, Tom said. We're done. Goodbye, Justine. I never want to see your face again. With these words, he went back to his food without looking at Justine, who was wiping her face. The waitress came over and asked if everything was okay. Yes, the food is excellent as always, Tom said nonchalantly. I'll take care of the payment, and I suppose the lady will take her food with her. Please, yes, sir, the waitress said as she left to get Justine's food box. She returned a few minutes later and put Justine's leftover food in a styrofoam container. Tom handed the waitress his credit card and paid for the food while Justine gathered her things. When the waitress was done, Justine looked at Tom. That's it? Tom said, waving his hand. She couldn't believe he had just brushed her off. I'm sorry, Tom. He tore his gaze away from his food before he spoke. Well, we can both agree on that, he said. Now, have a good day. Say hi to your mom for me. Oh, and happy anniversary, he added with a slight smile. Justine, not believing the calm manner in which her husband had basically just tossed her out like trash, ran out from the table sobbing. Tom smiled and went back to eating. He noticed several diners looking at him with disdain, but only smiled back, shrugging his shoulders. Outwardly, he may have been calm and collected, but inside, he was emotionally shattered. 5 years down the drain. At least now the worst was over. Epilogue. Tom managed to get through the next few days without incident. It hadn't been easy. He had once really loved Justine. It pained him to treat her like that, but he decided it was better than acting on his desire to confront her. Then the day arrived when he heard a knock on his front door. In his master bedroom upstairs, he looked out the window to see Carter's sports car in the driveway. He had a hunch that something like this was going to happen, so he made some additions to his home security system at Alpha 1's urging. He went downstairs and opened the door. It was Jake Carter, angry, and Tom backed up as Carter squeezed his way in. You son of an expletive. You cost me my job and Justine won't even talk to me. I'll kill you, you expletive piece of expletive. Jake shouted, looming over Tom. Suddenly, 15 tiny red dots appeared on Jake's shirt. Emergency storm. An electronic voice shouted from speakers built into the walls. Don't move. What the hell is this? Shouted the uninvited guest. He raised his hands as if swiping the dots. Suddenly, There was the jerky sound of a gunshot, and Jake looked down to see 15 darts sticking out of his body. He reached up, but he never did. His eyes rolled up, and his body collapsed to the floor. "I don't think you're going to be able to kill anyone today, Carter," Tom said calmly, grabbing his phone. He pressed an icon on the phone and heard a man's voice. "Operator 715 to 463. Clean up aisle 15. "Clean up aisle 15. Copy that," the man said. Tom pressed another icon, and the systems that had fired a charge of tranquilizer darts at Jake turned and retracted back into the ceiling. When the doors of the systems closed, no one could tell there was anything there. Tom smiled, satisfied that the new security system had worked as announced. A few minutes later, an unmarked white van pulled into the driveway. Several men in TIC suits entered the house and dragged Jake's unconscious body out. One of them grabbed Jake's keys and got into the sports car. A couple of minutes later, the van and Jake's sports car were gone. Tom closed the door and went about his business. A few days later, after Tom had bought a caramel mocha at a local coffee shop, he was stopped on the street by a large man in a dark suit and sunglasses. "Alpha 1 wants to talk to you, Mr. Waters," the man growled. "Now." "Okay," Tom said, a little discouraged by the man's behavior. He followed the man to a long black limousine parked on the side of the street and got in after the man opened the back door. "Waters, good to see you're out," Alpha 1 said after the door closed. "Aita, sir. I have a lot to do," Tom said. Alpha 1 smiled and put his hand on Tom's shoulder in a friendly manner. "You're welcome, Tom. When it's just the two of us, you can call me Regis," said the one-eyed man. "I wanted to give you an update on Mr. Carter. He sings like a canary." "Thank you, Alpha." Regis. "So he says all the right things, then?" Tom asked. "Oh yes, he does. Right off the bat," said Regis. "But now he's literally singing like a canary. Seems the combination of those tranquilizer darts in the new security system and the serum we use to extract the information we need has turned his brain into applesauce. Right now, he's swinging on a swing in a metal cage and chirping like a bird." "Oh," Tom said. Regis pulled an envelope out of his jacket pocket and held it out to Tom. "We got him to settle out of court with you before he got too incompetent to sign his name," Regis said. "He was so grateful to be alive that he agreed to a lot more than you wanted." "Well, that's good to hear," said Tom. "By the way, I want you to know that I'm really impressed with your new system," Regis said. "Now that we got what we need from Carter, I'm glad you didn't use the 5-caliber chain guns I suggested." "Me too," Tom said. "I had my carpet cleaned recently." Regis grinned at that. "Have you heard anything about Justine?" Tom asked. "Yes, she's back to work, although Mr. Parker keeps her on a very short leash." "Did you ever mention to her who you really work for?" Regis asked. "No, Regis, I never did," said Tom. Regis nodded his head. He already knew that from his monitoring devices, but wanted to hear it from Tom in person. "Okay," Regis said. "Well, when your divorce is finalized, I'd like you to come at headquarters. I'd like to introduce you to your new partner." "Partner?" Tom asked. "I've never needed a partner before." "Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there, Tom?" "Yes, sir, I suppose so," said Tom. "Good," said Regis. "Then I look forward to meeting you." "Me too," Regis said. Tom stepped out of the limousine, and a large man squeezed into the driver's seat. As the long car merged into the traffic, Tom wondered what Regis had in store for him.